From the Presidential Palace, Manila, Dateline Malacañang.
Good day. Radio Pilipinas World Service can also be heard on shortwave broadcast through the shortwave facilities of the United States Agency for Global Media or Voice of America on the following shortwave frequencies: 12.020 MHz, 15.640 MHz, and 17.665 MHz. I'm your host, Leo Magpayo, and this is Dateline Malacañang in Review. Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. on Monday called for the nationwide expansion of precast housing facilities to accelerate the rollout of the government's expanded Pambansang Pabahay para sa Pilipino or 4PH program. Speaking at the 4PH milestone event and the 7th anniversary celebration of the Department of Human Settlements and Urban Development or DSUD at the Megawide Precast Plant in Taytay, Rizal Province, the President highlighted the importance of modern construction technology in delivering quality, affordable homes at a faster pace. President Marcos toured the facility, which manufactures precast walls, slabs, beams, and columns used in Pag-ibig-funded 4PH projects. The chief executive said precast construction shortens building timelines and reduces the waiting period for families seeking permanent housing. From July 2022 to January 2026, the administration has completed and financed more than 423,000 housing units under various modalities.
Ang pagbisita natin sa precast plant na ito ay isang hakbang patungo sa pagbuo ng mga tahanan sa ating bansa gamit ang makabagong teknolohiya. Dito po ay atin natunghayan ang isang napakahalagang proseso kung paano mas mapabilis ang produksyon ng mga housing unit. At layunin natin na ang bawat Pilipino ay magkaroon ng bahay na ligtas, na disente at abot kaya. Gagawin po namin ang lahat ng aming kakayahan upang hindi lamang itong plantang itong nakikita ninyo ngayon, kung hindi madagdagan pa at maparami pa upang mapabilis ang konstruksyon at maparami ang aming maibibigay na tahanan.
Was Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.
Dateline Malacañang.
Malacañang on Monday said Senators Ronald Bato de la Rosa and Christopher Lawrence Bongo could undergo the same legal process faced by former President Rodrigo Duterte before the International Criminal Court or ICC if arrest warrants are issued. In a press briefing, Palace Press Officer Claire Castro stressed that the government will follow the law, noting that the ICC proceedings naming De La Rosa, Go, and several former officials as alleged co-perpetrators stem from cases filed in 2017. Castro said the administration cannot interfere with the ICC process, emphasizing that the complaint predates President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.'s term. The ICC Office of the Prosecutor has tagged 8 current and former officials in alleged crimes linked to the Duterte administration's anti-drug campaign. Duterte has been detained at the ICC Detention Center in The Hague since March 11, 2025 on charges of crimes against humanity. He is set to appear in a confirmation hearing on February 23rd after being declared fit to stand trial. Castro reiterated that the Marcos administration will adhere to due process, including any implementation of arrest warrants through Interpol Procedures, she said, were followed in Duterte's case.
Okay. Kung ito naman ay legal process na nanggagaling po sa ICC, hindi naman po natin ito maaaring pakialaman dahil ang kasong yan ay naisampa noon pa 2017 at hindi pa po Pangulo si Pangulo Marcos Jr. So kung dadaan sa proseso, yan naman po ang nais ng pamahalang ito. Ang ginagawa ng pamahalang ito ay dumadaan lahat sa proseso.
While the government maintains that the ICC no longer has jurisdiction over the Philippines, Castro noted that alleged offenses committed when the country was still a member may be treated differently. She added that authorities are not monitoring the whereabouts of those named, as no warrants have been issued. Castro dismissed claims that the case is being used to divert attention from other issues, saying the complaint long predates the current administration. She urged Duterte supporters to remain calm and allow the legal process to proceed, adding that those accused should not go into hiding.
Hindi po dapat i-encourage ni Numan na magkagulo kung nagsisilbi lamang po ng valid warrant of arrest. Muli, ang kaso na isinampa, kung meron naman pong batayan, ay dapat lamang po madinggin. Para malaman natin, pareho naman po ito magiging hustisya sa dalawang panig. Hustisya sa mga di umanong naging biktima ng EJK, ng extrajudicial killings, at ito ay magsisilbi ring hustisya para doon sa naaakusahan kung mapapakita niyang wala naman siyang kinalaman at wala siyang kasalanan, maaaring magkaroon ng acquittal sa nasabing kaso. Unang-una, kung kayo magtatago, ano bang ibig sabihin yan? Kayo ba'y may kasalanan? Tinatago nyo para hindi po kayo madinig at ma-escape kayo or ma-evade the liability of what you had done? So, hindi po kinakailangang magtago kung alam po nila na sila'y walang kasalanan, humarap sila at maging matapang sa mga maaaring proseso.
De La Rosa has not been publicly seen for months, while Go remains active and has previously denied involvement.
Dateline Malacañang.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. joined Filipinos on Tuesday in welcoming the Year of the Firehorse, calling on the nation to match optimism with discipline and deliberate action to sustain the country's momentum. In his Lunar New Year message, the president said the horse symbolizes movement, courage, and forward motion, while the fire element represents energy and drive. But he emphasized that progress cannot rely on symbolism alone. President Marcos said the nation moves forward when Filipinos show up for work, when families manage their resources wisely, and when government and industry make sound decisions that turn daily effort into long-term growth. The chief executive noted that the Lunar New Year has long been a season of renewal for many Filipino families and businesses, a time to set priorities and pursue sustainable prosperity. Prosperity, he said, is something built through everyday discipline, strengthened when it creates jobs and supports communities. The president urged Filipinos to move with purposeful haste, swift when necessary, measured when it matters most, stressing that while momentum inspires, direction ultimately determines results. He also underscored the need to protect fair opportunity, ensure reliable public services, and strengthen productivity, value chains, and inclusive communities. President Marcos Jr. said that by keeping standards high and staying firmly on course, the country can shape a more prosperous, agile, and empowered new Philippines. The Lunar New Year remains widely celebrated across the Philippines, especially in Filipino-Chinese communities, with traditions centered on family gatherings, cultural festivities, and prayers for good fortune.
Dateline Malacañang.
Malacañang on Tuesday expressed optimism about strengthening collaboration between the government and the private sector under the new leadership of the Philippine Chamber of Commerce and Industry, or PCCI. In a statement, the Office of the Executive Secretary said, Executive Secretary Ralph Recto officiated the induction of the newly elected PCCI Board of Directors and Officers on February 13th. Recto assured the private sector that it will always have a seat at the table under the administration of Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. The new set of leaders will serve PCCI from 2026 to 2027. The PCCI is a non-stock, non-profit, non-government business organization comprised of small, medium, and large enterprises, local chambers, and industry associations representing various sectors of business, all working together to foster a healthier Philippine economy and improve the viability of business in the community. It is the result of a merger on July 1, 1978 of the Chamber of Commerce of the Philippines, established on July 19, 1903, and the Philippine Chamber of Industry, created on March 4, 1950. PCCI is recognized as the sole official representative and voice of entire private business community by virtue of Letter of Instruction number 780, signed by then-President Ferdinand E. Marcos Sr.
Dateline Malacañang.
Malacañang on Wednesday said the fate of individuals behind the spread of fake medical records of Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. now rests with the National Bureau of Investigation, or NBI. Vlogger Jason Argota, who allegedly circulated the fake medical records of President Marcos for social media engagement, appeared before the NBI in compliance with a subpoena issued against him. Communications Undersecretary and Palace Press Officer Attorney Claire Castro emphasized the need to enforce the law and hold offenders accountable. She said issuing an apology is not enough to make up for the violations committed. Castro said Argota can defend himself if he is not guilty.
Ang batas ay dapat ipatupad. Ang lumabag sa batas ay dapat managot. Hindi po kasi ginagawang biro ang pagko-content, lalo na kung makaka-apekto to, hindi lamang sa taong ginawa mong subject matter sa iyong content, kundi sa buong tao, sa buong mamamayan na maaari makapanood ng inyong mga fake news. So nilalabanan po natin ang fake news at hindi po dapat ito gagawin at pagkasabi ng sorry ay tapos na. So tignan na lamang po natin kung anong mangyayari po dyan at kung wala naman siyang kasalanan, ipagtanggol na lamang niya ang kanyang sarili. Ang nagsampa naman po ay ang NBI. Kung ano po ang nakikita nilang nilabag sa batas, dapat panagutin.
Apart from Argota, the NBI is also investigating other personalities allegedly involved in spreading the false medical information about President Marcos, including former broadcaster Jay Sonza. President Marcos previously took a short break from public engagements after being diagnosed with diverticulitis, an inflammation of small pouches in the colon. The chief executive has since returned to his regular schedule, participating in public events.
Dateline Malacañang.
Malacañang on Wednesday said Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. is wishing Vice President Sara Duterte good luck following her pronouncement regarding her presidential bid in 2028. Communications Undersecretary and Palace Press Officer Attorney Claire Castro, however, said she could not tell whether the president was sarcastic when he expressed his well wishes for Duterte. Earlier in the day, Duterte announced her plan to run for president in 2028 as she expressed dismay over President Marcos's alleged failure to fulfill his campaign promises. Duterte also slammed President Marcos's lack of sincerity as well as the president's alleged incompetence to lead the country and address pressing issues including the rising commodity prices, ineffective healthcare system, and prevalence of crimes. She claimed that the 2025 national budget is also tainted with corruption. Castro, however, schooled Duterte, saying she should have been apologetic over her shortcomings as the country's second highest official and as a former secretary of the Department of Education or DepEd. She added that Duterte should instead apologize to the victims of extrajudicial killings or EJKs associated with the drug war launched by her father, former President Rodrigo Duterte. Duterte, Castro said, should also apologize for her previous death threat against President Marcos, as well as for spreading fake news to besmirch the current administration. Castro also said the chief executive did not expect to be bad-mouthed and attacked by a former ally, but remains focused on performing his duties to improve Filipinos' lives. She expressed optimism that Filipino voters would be wise in choosing the country's next leader, urging them to be cautious and discerning. This as she warned that Duterte can be considered as a politician who thinks about the next election, who focuses on personal interests rather than the people.
Good luck. Nadinig niyo po. At ang sabi niya po ay good luck. Yun lamang po. At nadinig niya po ang mga sinabi na pinagsisisihan at humihingi ng patawaran itong sa Vice Presidente. Okay, isa-isahin natin. Mas maganda po yan. Humingi siya ng kapatawaran dahil tinulungan niya sa pangangampanya. Tandaan po natin, ang taong bayan ang naghalal kay Pangulong Marcos Jr. Kung ano man po ang natulong niya, pareho naman po sila nagtulungan dahil ito ay unity team. Kaya wag niya pong solohin ang credit kung nanalo man ang Pangulo. At nakikita ngayon ng Pangulo at rather ng mga kababayan natin kung sino ba nagtatrabaho. Isang working president compared sa Vice Presidente. Pinag-uusapan po ba ang korupsyon, ang katiwalian? Siguro po dapat mauna muna na ihingi niya ng tawad kung ano man ang mga issue ng korupsyon at katiwalian at di umanong paglulustay ng confidential funds ng kanyang dalawang opisina at the time, OVP at ng DepEd. Kung meron pang napipintong impeachment, ito po ay dahil sa kanyang kagagawan mismo. Kung wala naman siyang ginawa na mga maanumalya at labag sa konstitusyon, hindi naman po siguro siya masasampahan ng mga impeachment complaints. Malamang hindi naman po alam ng Pangulo na ang kanya magiging presidente ay puro bakasyon. At mga Vice Presidente na puro bakasyon. Vice Presidente na hindi siya tutulungan. Vice Presidente na ang magiging trabaho ay manira sa gobyerno. Hindi naman niya pagsisisihan kung ano nangyari. Ang gagawin lamang po ng Pangulo ay magtrabaho. Kung hindi siya tutulungan ng kanyang Vice Presidente, wala naman po magagawa ang ating Pangulo, kundi magtrabaho na lamang para sa ating bayan. Wala po nararamdaman ng palasyo patungkol dyan. Depende na po sa tao kung paano nilang susuriin ang mga kandidato. Isipin po nila ang kandidato at magiging leader ay dapat na makabayan. Dapat interes ng bayan ang sinusulong. At maging cautious tayo, maging mapanuri, kung isang Manchurian candidate ba ang maiboboto nyo.
Claire Castro.
Dateline Malacañang.
Still on Wednesday, Malacañang announced that Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. has ordered an evaluation of infrastructure needs in the Kalayaan Island Group or KIG, including the possibility of building port and airway facilities. Communications Undersecretary and Palace Press Officer Attorney Claire Castro said the President ordered the Department of Public Works and Highways to evaluate the situation on the ground.
Sa ngayon po, nakausap ko mismo si Sec Vince at inutusan po talaga sila ng Pangulo ang puntahan ang Kalayaan Group, Kalayaan Island Group at tignan po kung anong kinakailangan. At sila po ay magmumungkahi na gumawa doon ng port at ng airway. Sa ating pagkakalam, 2025 ay may pondo. Pero ang sabi po sa akin ni Sec Vince Dizon kanina ay titignan po nila para po mapatupad kung ano yung nais ng Pangulo sa KIG.
Palawan Province has jurisdiction over the KIG, which is part of the Spratly Islands in the West Philippine Sea. Pag-asa Island, or Thitu Island, is the largest Philippine-occupied landmark in the area, with both civilian and military forces stationed there. The West Philippine Sea is a source of contention between the Philippines and China, with Manila claiming sovereign rights under the 1982 United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, or UNCLOS, and the 2016 arbitral award that rejected Beijing's wide 9-line claim.
Dateline Malacañang.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. on Thursday reaffirmed that education remains a top priority of his administration as nearly 2,000 public school teachers and school leaders in Central Luzon moved up the ranks under the expanded career progression system. A total of 1,991 educators from Bulacan and Pampanga provinces took their oaths in a mass ceremony led by Education Secretary Sani Angara. In his speech, the President said the promotions underscore government's continued investment in the sector, both through funding and long-term structural reforms. President Marcos also highlighted the government's 1.34 trillion peso education budget this year, equivalent to over 4% of the country's gross domestic product or GDP, along with complementary initiatives such as the Yaman ng Kalusugan or Yaman program for teacher healthcare and continued teaching and medical allowances. The Central Luzon ceremony follows earlier promotions in the Ilocos region and the National Capital Region as the administration accelerates the nationwide implementation of the career progression system.
You are the ones who teach them the lessons for work and for life, how to care for others, how to be responsible, how to stand with integrity. These are the foundations of a strong society, and they are built day to day in your classrooms. In this age, many of our challenges require discipline, honesty, empathy, values first learned at home and strengthened in your classrooms through your example. Kaya tanyaan ninyo ako na taus-puso mong pasalamat. Maraming salamat sa inyong lahat, sa inyong dedikasyon at sa inyong malasakit. That is why our responsibility as a government is to stand beside you, making your profession more sustainable, more dignified, and more rewarding. Kagaya ng aking nasabi sa dati, prioridad natin ang edukasyon hanggang matapos ang administrasyong nito. At bilang patunay, naglaan tayo ng mahigit 1.34 trillion pesos para sa sektor ng edukasyon ngayong taon. Katumbas ito ng higit 4% ng ating buong ekonomiya ay nandyan para sa edukasyon, para suportahan ng guro, para tulungan at alalayan at alagaan ang ating mga kabataan. Alam din natin na sa sobrang dami ng inyong trabaho, minsan nakakalimutan na ninyo kumain o kaya naman lagi kayong puyat. Kadalasan, nawawalan na kayo ng panahon para tingnan ng lagay ng inyong kalusugan. Kaya inilunsad natin ang Yaman ng Kalusugan Program o yung Yakap Caravan. At sa programang ito, ang serbisyong medikal ay ang lalapit na sa inyo. May libreng kasama po dyan ang libreng laboratory test, na mga urinalysis, blood work, konsultasyon, gamot, at pagsusuri ng inyong vital signs.
That was Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.
Dateline Malacañang.
Also on Thursday, Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. is set to visit Naga City on Saturday as part of the government's nationwide cleanup drive, where he is expected to meet with former Vice President and current Naga City Mayor Leni Robredo. In a press briefing at Malacañang, Palace Press Officer Claire Castro said the visit forms part of the administration's Oplan Contra Baha initiative, which focuses on clearing waterways, including canals, esteros, and rivers, to help reduce flooding.
Yung Oplan Contra Baha ay pinasimulan na po sa Naga City ng ating Pangulo. Busy po ngayon ang kawani ng DPWH para linisin ang mga kanal, ang estero at ang ilog sa Naga City. Yan po ang bibisitahin ng ating Pangulo at totoo po, nabibisita po siya at makakasama niya po ang Mayor Leni Robredo ng Naga City sa February 21. Sabado. Yun lang po ang ating yun lang po ang binigay na impormasyon dahil nga po ang pinasisimulan nga po ng Pangulo itong Oplan Contra Baha at isa sa mga lugar na kanyang pinatutukan ay ang Naga City. So, yun lamang po. Kung ano pang pag-uusapan nila, abangan na lang po natin.
Asked about possible political discussions or alliances, Castro said none are on the agenda. Castro also brushed aside speculation that the timing of the visit signals any political messaging, coming just days after Vice President Sara Duterte announced her 2028 presidential bid.
Wala po kasi talaga na pag-uusapan tungkol sa pangangampanya o kung sino man ang magiging kandidato sa 2028. Hindi pa po kasi panahon ngayon, napakaaga po pa kasi para tayo mag-announce na ikay tatakbo o hindi. Napakaaga para mamulitika. Ang dami pong dapat na ayusin sa bansa natin. Maraming dapat na ayusin na interes ng ating mga kababayan. So, masyadong maaga ang pag-usapan kung sinong tatakbo sa 2028.
Palace Press Officer Claire Castro.
Dateline Malacañang.
And finally, Malacañang on Friday said the palace is genuinely puzzled as former President Rodrigo Duterte's camp insists that he was kidnapped by the Philippine government. In a press briefing, Palace Press Officer Claire Castro said the purpose of Duterte's camp continuously pushing this narrative is to destroy and bring down the image of President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. Castro cited a newspaper article dated March 10, 2025, saying that the former president himself said that he is willing to be arrested once a warrant of arrest is issued. Undersecretary Castro insisted that how can they claim there was kidnapping when former President Duterte himself said he was ready to be arrested once the International Criminal Court or ICC warrant was issued.
Tayo nga po'y lubhang nagtataka dahil patuloy nila itong ginagawang naratibo. At ang purpose lamang nito ay sirain at ibagsak ang imahe ng ating Pangulo. Dahil mismo si dating Pangulong Duterte ang nagsabi na siya ay willing magpa-aresto kapag nandyan ang warrant of arrest. At ito nga po ay aking nakita sa isang news kung saan Philippines Duterte says he will accept arrest if ICC issues warrant. Ito ay may date na March 10, 2025 at itong salaysay na ito ay nakuha pa nung siya ay nasa Hong Kong. So alam niya na magkakaroon ng pagsisilbi ng warrant of arrest. At ito pa ang sinabi niya, and I quote, assuming it's, referring to warrant, assuming it's true, why did I do it? For myself? for my family, for you and your children, and for our nation. If it is truly my fate in life, it's okay. I will accept it. They can arrest me, imprison me. He was not scared of the ICC and told it to hurry up on its investigation. So, papaano nilang masasabing may kidnapping kung mismo ang dating Pangulong Duterte ay handang magpaaresto kapag ang warrant of arrest ng ICC ay nandyan na?
That was Palace Press Officer Attorney Claire Castro.
Dateline Malacañang.
Before we conclude our program, Radyo Pilipinas World Service of the Presidential Broadcast Service can be heard over the following shortwave frequencies: 12.020 MHz, 15.640 MHz, and 17.665 MHz. Radyo Pilipinas World Service is also live on audio streaming. Just download Evox PBS Receiver on your Google Play Store or the App Store from your Apple phone. You can also visit our Facebook page and YouTube channel. Just type in and search for Radyo Pilipinas World Service. Kindly subscribe, like, and share our posts as well. And that concludes this edition of Dateline Malacañang in Review. For Radyo Pilipinas World Service, this is Leo Magpayo. Good day and stay safe.
From the Presidential Palace, Manila, Dateline Malacañang.